Hello and welcome to our Indie Press Showcase. I'm Donna Seaman, Adult Books Editor at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom an hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the link located there. You can also download the slides and title list by typing the URL on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar. Look for the Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we will pass along all other questions to today's panelists, so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all our webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar. From there, you can select show or hide subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the caption at any time by selecting caption settings. All right, and finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates the standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of organizers, be immediately removed. And now, today, we have the pleasure of hearing from three panelists. We have MC Smitherman, Sales and Marketing Assistant at CamCat Books. We have Baham Ali, Trade Marketing Lead at ECW Press, and author Robert Wintner. First up is MC Smitherman. Maxwell MC Smitherman is CamCat's Sales and Marketing Assistant. With a BA in theater from Cal Arts, MC has been involved in producing and telling stories his whole life. At CamCat, in addition to the work he does for the sales and marketing team, he also consults with the editorial team and is a consistent member of CamCat's podcast team. When he's not plugging away at work, you can usually find him listening to podcasts, writing, doing voiceover, or playing as many tabletop RPGs as he can get his hands on. We're so glad you're here with us today, MC.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. As was just stated, I'm MC Smitherman, and like most of us today, I will be talking about some of our upcoming spring titles. And we can head on to the first slide. So first up today, we have Dust Spells by Andrea Lynn, which is a young adult historical/paranormal book. With a starred review from Publishers Weekly and a myriad of other glowing reviews, Dust Spells is a Dust Bowl-era retelling of the classic story, The 12 Dancing Princesses. In Andrea Lynn's version, we follow the ambitious Stella Fisher, who spends her mornings hiding moonshine in laundry stacks for delivery before returning home to help her sisters, Lavinia and Maddie, run their family home turned boarding house, hoping to make enough money to finally escape to Hollywood. Stella has no time for distractions, especially not from Lloyd, the handsome drifter who works as a hired hand at the boarding house. Things take a wild turn, though, when the group discovers a magical passage that sends them back in time where, or when, they meet Archie, a man trapped in the realm who can conjure lavish parties and bring back a world of joy and splendor. But not everything is as it seems, and Stella must discover the truth before a storm more deadly than dust destroys her and everyone she loves. Dust Spells came out on May 7th and is perfect for readers looking for themes of self-love, trust, and family. We can hit the next one. Next slide. Thank you. Next up is another paranormal book. This one is for adult fiction fans and purveyors of the spooky sciences. The Shabti by Megira C. Lorenz is an enormously enjoyable and atmospheric tale that finally answers the age-old question, can you flim-flam a ghost? In the Shabti, like in Dust Spells, we take a little ride into history, and this time back to 1934, where we follow former medium Dashiell Quick, who's traveling the country debunking spiritualism and false mediums until he stumbles upon a genuine haunting. Herman Goschlach, an Egyptologist, is convinced he has a haunted artifact on his hands and seeks Dashiell's supposed expertise. Dashiell would rather skip town to stay ahead of his ex-business partner and lover, who wants him back at any cost, until he finds himself falling for Herman. Packed with great representation, charming characters, and real-life history spouting from the author's experience with her PhD in Egyptology, the Shabti is a great pick for those looking for a fun and a little spooky adventure. Lorenz's book hits shelves on May 21st. We can go to the next slide. Diving deeper into the spooks and scares is our next book, The Boy from Two Worlds by Jason Offutt, the terrifying sequel to The Girl in the Corn. This horror novel continues Offutt's award-winning series by upping the stakes with The End of the World. In this sequel, we follow Thomas Cavanaugh a few blurry years after the events of The Girl in the Corn as he wonders whether or not he should break up with his fey girlfriend, Jillian, as she begins acting strangely before she does the unthinkable and vanishes with 4-year-old Jacob Jenkins, a boy with terrifying preternatural powers. Suddenly, and without warning, years later, Jacob reappears unaged, claiming to have been in another world. And with his return, violent murders begin splattering Cavanaugh's town as someone with dark magic is devouring souls to fulfill an unknown purpose. With more terror, action, and paranormal goodness than ever before, The Boy from Two Worlds hits shelves on June 4th and is the perfect buy for readers looking for some springtime scares. Go to the next slide. Thank you. But fear not, if horror isn't your thing, you don't need to worry because we've got an excellent YA romance coming a week after The Boy from Two Worlds releases. How to Get Over Your Best Friend's Ex by Christy McManus is overflowing with charm from the jump, packed with everything YA romance readers look for, lighthearted dialogue, great humor, an underdog story, and a close look at how hard first loves can be. Hannah Taylor has lived in her best friend Braylon's shadow all through high school, but when she meets Seth, the handsome and charming newcomer, she wonders if, for once, she might finally be in the spotlight. Until Braylon and Seth meet, and Bray sweeps his attention away as only she can. But this relationship comes to an unexpected end a few months later, and though Hannah vows to help her friend get over the breakup, everything gets all tangled together when Hannah learns that she was the reason for the breakup and that Seth might like her back. How to Get Over Your Best Friend's Ex is the best way for a reader to get a jump start on a summer of love when it comes out on June 11th. We can do the next slide. Rewinding back to our historical selection, let's jump back to 1953 to follow the starstruck mystery When I Was Alice by Jennifer Murgia. In an attempt to make a desperate wish for her brother's recovery from a near-fatal car accident, Grace Brighton climbs the Hollywood sign but loses her footing to plummet to the ground below, only there's no impact. Instead, she finds herself at the center of attention at a film studio in 1953's Hollywood. In 1953, everyone believes Grace is actually Alice Montgomery, a rising film star who disappeared just days earlier. With no choice but to step into Alice's shoes, Grace begins to suspect that something terrible happened to the young actress because not everybody's happy that she's back. Afraid that she has a target on her back while under the guise of Alice, Grace must find a way back to her own time before she risks dying before she's born. Unveiling the glitzy curtain, casting a glamorous veil over 1950s Hollywood, When I Was Alice is a captivating mystery, with plenty of glowing reviews already. Murgia's novel is the perfect book club read as readers will try to piece together the mystery of Alice Montgomery, a mystery to be solved when it hits shelves on June 25th. We can go to the next slide. Sailing back into the modern age, let's take a look at our next book, a YA horror novel, A Misfortune of Lake Monsters by Nicole M. Wilverton. This delivers a wildly creepy and imaginative adventure with a hook that snags any reader's attention. Lemon Ziegler can't quite escape Devil's Elbow, Pennsylvania, to attend college because she's been tasked to impersonate the town's fake lake monster in perpetuity. Unbeknownst to tourists, her family has been secretly keeping the tradition of Old Lucy, the famed and very fake monster of Lake Lokakoma, alive for generations. If Lemon doesn't keep up the act, the town dies, and she can't bring herself to disappoint her grandparents. She also can't tell her best friends about any of it. Not even Troy Ramirez, who has been covertly in love with Lemon for years. What's even worse than not going to college, though, is that Lemon discovers she's not the only monster patrolling the waters. A very real and very hungry monster is discovered in the lake, and Lemon and her best friends are the only things standing between Devil's Elbow and this monster that's out for blood. This thrilling tale is perfect for readers who enjoy Harrow Lake by Kat Ellis or The Lake House by Sarah Beth Durst and other similar titles, and it'll be out to sate their hunger on July 2nd. You can hit the next slide. Uh, so next up, we are steering the horror into the unknowable by turning to The Building That Wasn't, a sci-fi novel by Abigail Miles that will bend your mind in 6 different dimensions. In a story that only ever has one ending, Evelyn Tertium encounters a strange man in the park claiming to be her grandfather and is invited to visit a mysterious apartment building where she finds herself in a constant state of deja vu. Everly is impossibly certain that she's already lived through these moments, already been introduced to these people, and already visited all of these rooms and floors, which begs the question, why does she have no idea what's happening to her? The longer she stays in the building, the more Everly becomes convinced there's more going on than meets the eye. With the passage of time skewed and the possibility of exiting the building obscured, Everly begins to wonder that if she were trapped, would that be such a bad thing? With endlessly fascinating sci-fi concepts at hand, in tandem with curious yet charming characters, The Building That Wasn't finds a unique take on the multiverse that would shock even the biggest Spider-Man fan. Perfect for fans of sci-fi, new and old, The Building That Wasn't is available for exploration on July 16th. We can hit our next slide. But once you find your way out of that adventure, though, you can take a load off with CamCat's perfect summer beach read, Dare to Au Pair by Maya Corell. When the recent business school grad and meticulous 10-year planner, Kate McLaurin takes an unplanned au pair position in the French Riviera to schmooze a future employee, she haphazardly upholds her reputation while rejuvenating a local tourism magazine, grappling with 3 unruly kids, and avoiding a local romance with the host family's eldest son. But if a summer full of well-aged wine, sizzling flirtation, and a bit of betrayal can promise one thing, it's that sometimes the best things in life are the ones we didn't plan for. With empowering themes of self-discovery, Dare to Au Pair is perfect for readers looking for a fresh contemporary romance and is the perfect size to fit into your beach bag when it releases on August 6th. Into the next slide. Ooh, excuse me. And although Maya Corell offers a summer of love, Marcy McGreary swings around to finish the sentence with her next entry in the Ford family mystery series, The Summer of Love and Death. This time around, Detective Susan Ford and her new partner, Detective Jack Tomalee, are called to a crime scene at the local summer stock theater where they find the director of Murder on the Orient Express gruesomely murdered. When Susan describes the murder to her dad, retired Detective Will Ford, he recognizes the MO of a 1969 serial killer, a case that he worked 50 years ago. With this unique father-daughter detective duo, McCreary's newest entry is the perfect standalone mystery for readers looking for a whodunit in 2024. This hunt begins when the book releases on August 13th. Looking at the next slide. And finally, the final fresh release we'll be talking about today is another fascinating sci-fi novel. The Mechanics of Memory by Audrey Lee is a pulse-pounding technological mystery cycling around the cerebral. We're all familiar with the concept of an unreliable narrator, but this time around, the narrator can't trust herself. Memory is Copeland Stark's business. Yet after months of reconsolidating treatments at their sleek new flagship facility, Hope Nakano still has no idea what happened to her last year, or the life she was just beginning to build with her one great love. And each procedure surfaces fragmented clues which erode Hope's trust in her own memories. Already racking up glowing reviews, Audrey Lee's newest novel will grab you from page one and keep you locked in all the way until the end with masterful writing. The Mechanics of Memory is an excellent choice for fans of sci-fi and love stories that will be available for you to pick up on August 27th. And at the next slide. Now, hardcovers aren't the only thing where it's at for us this season, though, as we have over half a dozen paperbacks taking CamCat stories back to the shelves. There's a great book for fans of any genre coming back if you missed us the first time around. We can do the next slide. We also have great selections for our YA readers. And the final slide. That brings us to the end of our presentation with CamCat. You can find us on Edelweiss for catalogs and e-arcs, and although we are distributed by IPG, you can pick up our books at your favorite wholesaler. For any questions or inquiries, you can reach out to me or the other members of our marketing team, Laura Woofit and Abigail Miles. Thank you all so much for sticking with me. I've been MC Smitherman, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, MC. I get the voiceover work. Now we're going to be joined by Elham Ali. Elham Ali is a writer and publishing professional based in Toronto. She graduated from the University of Toronto in 2014, and since completing the Humber College Publishing Program, she has worked in marketing and publicity at Canada's Ballet Jorgen, Penguin Random House Canada, and Dundurn Press. She has served as trade marketing lead at ECW Press since 2022, and we're so happy to have you back, Elham.
Thank you so much. I'm always happy to be back. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all having a lovely day, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about some of the really incredible books that we have coming spring with a few fall highlights. First slide, please. So if you don't know us, I always like to start with an introduction. ECW Press is one of the largest independent publishers and audiobook producers in Canada. We're celebrating 50 years this year, and in that time, we've done over 1,000 books. Our promise is that ECW has something for every reader, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, poetry. But today in particular, what I wanted to focus on is some of the incredible speculative books that we have coming this year. Fantasy, horror, sci-fi, it's an area that we've really been trying to expand in the last couple of years. And so this year we have some really amazing ones. And so kicking us off, next slide, please. I'd love to start with Grey Dog by Elliot Gish. Queer horror is an area that we're exploring in a really big way this season. And so the first book in that sort of trifecta that we have coming is Grey Dog. This is a spooky sapphic take on Anne of Green Gables that's perfect for fans of feminist rage, gothic novels, and body horror. This novel is set in 1901 and it follows Ada Bird, who is a spinster who comes to the small town of Lowry Bridge to take up a teaching post, but also to kind of start a new life. She's looking for an escape from the secrets of her past. And initially, everything seems to be going great. The town seems idyllic. And she's struck up this very lovely, close friendship with the local pastor's wife. But very soon, Ada learns that there's something out in the woods around the town, something that is dark, something that leaves her gruesome gifts in the night. It's stalking her. She calls this monster Grey Dog. But as the novel progresses and Ada's confusion about what is real and what isn't deepens, readers start to question, what is the real horror in this book? Is it Grey Dog? Is it Ada herself? Or is it the rage and unrealized desire that lives inside of her? The real genius of Grey Dog is the incredible voice that Eliot's created for her character. The novel is written entirely in diary entries, and so not only does the author nail all of the tropes of women's historical fiction, but she also creates like this very intense tension, and you can feel as Ada's grip on reality starts to slip. It absolutely pours through the page. And that tension is not just something that I'm promising. We posted this on NetGalley last fall, and it absolutely took off. And all of the reviewers have commented on that like unputdownable quality. They've called the book truly haunting, delightfully horrific, deliciously dark. and they called Eliot a writer to look out for, which is very, very exciting. And a lot of the trades have been praising the book as well. Publishers Weekly called it a seething, gorgeous horror debut. Booklist likened it to the yellow wallpaper in its exploration of a woman's descent into madness, and Forward Reviews called it a slow burn feminist horror novel with a lush setting and an explosive payoff. The book has taken off on TikTok and Bookstagram since its release too. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve and read what is likely to be the hottest horror of the summer, you definitely want to pick up Grey Dog. Next slide, please. So in 2021, ECW hosted a national competition to find Canada's best new speculative novel, and we're so excited to be publishing the winner, Withered, by AGA Wilmot. This novel follows 18-year-old Ellis, who's just survived a life-threatening eating disorder and has moved back to their mother's hometown, Blackstone, looking for a fresh start. But something about the town seems off, and everyone says that Ellis's new house is haunted. They don't want to believe it, but then when they start to see shadows moving in corners and veins pulsing in walls, they have no choice but to investigate. And so they team up with a local girl named Quinn to dig into the town's past. And what they discover is that their house is actually the battleground for a decades-long spectral war that threatens to destroy the town and everyone in it. This is a story of heartache and loss that deals with really important issues around grief and mental health, particularly eating disorders, which is a theme that the author has tackled before in their previous novel, The Death Scene Artist. This, however, it's in the horror genre, but I will say that it's a much softer horror than, the straight up body horror of Grey Dog. It's much more about the tension and the eerie vibes. It's a twist on the classical haunted house story that's more about the mystery of the house, as well as the relationship between Ellis and Quinn. There's a really lovely, prominent romance in the book than it is like a straight up scare fest. And so if you're a fan of Shirley Jackson or Stranger Things, you definitely want to pick up Withered by A.J. Wilmot. Next slide, please. And so bringing together completing the sort of, like I said, Spring 24 queer horror trifecta. This is a debut psychological thriller that combines Mexican Gothic and Get Out, all things seen and unseen by R.J. McDaniel. The novel follows Alex Wynn, an isolated, chronically ill university student who's just been released from a stint in a psych ward and found out that they've been kicked out of their campus housing. And so with no job and her relationships falling apart, everything seems lost until a rich high school friend of Alex's suddenly pops up in her life again and offers to let her house sit her family's summer cottage. But like as with rich people, this cottage is actually a mansion in a forest on a cliff on an island, cut off from the rest of the world. But Alex still jumps at the chance, and now, again, looking for escape, looking for a chance to recuperate, instead she finds herself an outsider in a remote insular community. And then when things start to get creepy, she's got to fight for her survival, not just from against the outside world, but also against the traumas that are threatening to resurface and pull her back under. The phrase fever dream has come up a lot in reviews and blurbs for the book, and I really think that that captures it so well. RJ is such a beautiful writer, and they really capture not just the lush, intense sort of setting of the book on the island, but also Alex's creeping dread and anxiety as well. The book will absolutely suck you in. I read it as an early manuscript and just could not put it down. I know that you'll get lost in it too. So if you're a fan of psychological thrillers, definitely pick up All Things Seen and Unseen by R.J. McDaniel. Next slide, please. Moving away from horror into science fiction, We Speak Through the Mountain is a follow-up to 2021's The Annual Migration of Clouds, which is one of my favorite books that ECW has ever published. It was a novella that was actually meant to be a standalone, but it won a multitude of awards and fans were calling for a sequel, so now we're bringing one, and we're really excited to be working with Preemie again. The first book followed a young woman named Reed who was trying to decide whether she should leave her post-apocalyptic community of survivors to go to university, which are like the last vestiges of civilization, or to stay and help her people rebuild. In We Speak Through the Mountain, Reed's made her choice and made her way through the wilderness to Howe's University. But very quickly she realizes that Howe's is not the sort of paradise that she thought it would be. And there are a lot of decisions that are being made at the university that she doesn't agree with. It turns out that even after everything, goes to hell, there are some divisions in our societies that we cannot shake, that are constantly rearing their ugly heads. The great equalizer is not the great equalizer, basically. The question at the heart of both of these books is, what do we owe each other? So in book one, Primi was really focused on community. What do we owe to the people who raise us up? But now she's pulling back the lens to ask us on a much bigger scale, what do we owe societies? What do we owe humanity? What do we owe to people who we might not know personally, but who are affected by the decisions that we make? It's a really thought-provoking social critique wrapped in a beautiful package of absolutely stunning prose, compelling characters, and masterful world building. These are novellas. And so it's a very short length, but Primi does so much in that time. To quote Publishers Weekly, these books pack an absolute punch. If you're a sci-fi fan, you should definitely be reading Primi. She debuted in 2018 and has since then written 11 books. And so if you love horror, pick up her Beneath the Rising trilogy. She's written tons of novellas, including the novellas And What Can We Offer You Tonight? That's what it's called. It's a book that we also produced as an audiobook at ECW. And most recently, The Butcher of the Forest and The Siege of Burning Grass. Again, definitely read Primi's work, including We Speak Through the Mountain and The Annual Migration of Clouds. Next slide, please. Another sci-fi novella, Countess by Susan Palumbo, is a queer gender-swapped Count of Monte Cristo set in space. The main character is Lieutenant Virika Samaru, who lives in colonized space under the Erebot Empire, much like her ancestors lived before her in the British West Indies. When her captain dies under suspicious circumstances, Virika is arrested for murder and charged with treason. That is, despite her lifelong loyalty to the Empire. And so after her conviction and imprisonment in the pit, she's set on a path of revenge, determined to take down the empire that wronged her, all while the fate of her people hang in the balance. In Countess, Susan takes a history of exploitation and colonialism in the Caribbean and brings it into the far-flung intergalactic future to show us that sometimes things really don't change. We've gotten a few incredible blurbs for this book in the week since I finished this slide. You can see that Martha Wells called it a gripping, intense story of loyalty and betrayal. Hailey Piper, who's the Bram Stoker Award-winning author of Queen of Teeth, called it a harrowing space opera journey of injustice and revenge, and worth every tense nerve and desperate hope. Susan is another rising star. She has won multiple awards for her short stories, and she'd previously written a short story collection called Skin Thief, but this is her first full-length debut, and again, we're super excited to work with her. If you are a fan of sci-fi, definitely read Countess this fall. It's coming out September 10th. And if you're going to ALA in San Diego in June, I'll have tons of ARCs of this, so come say hi and pick up a copy. Next slide, please. So that was the last of our fiction. Now I wanted to include some nonfiction for readers who might want to think about speculative fiction in a much more critical way. The first of those is The Call Is Coming From Inside the House by Alison McCourt. This is a collection of intimate and funny essays where Alison explores her identity as a woman and as a queer person and as a mother through the lens of the pop culture that she loved in the 80s and 90s, particularly horror. So for example, in The Harbinger, she looks at anxiety, kind of characterizing it as the harbinger, that character in every horror novel who's like, don't go to the house, don't go to the village, stay away. So she also explores her relationships as a queer woman. For example, I definitely recommend that you go to the New York Times Modern Love column, where in 2020 she published an essay called The Ghost Was the Least of Our Problems, looking at the sort of heteronormative dream that she and her former partner had. They bought a house, that she was pregnant, they were looking at really the dream, but then it's complicated by a difficult pregnancy and a haunted house. These are really tender, funny, and deeply thoughtful essays that kind of combine girlhood, and the work of Melissa Febo with film analysis on par with Carmen Maria Machado. And don't take that from me, you can read that in Autostradle's wonderful review of this book. The Chicago Review of Books also praised the way that Allison embodies the complicated, confusing, tricky, hard beauty of life and encourages us to embrace it. Please excuse me. This one has already come out on April 30th, so if you are a fan of essays, please pick up The Call is Coming from Inside the House. Next slide, please. And finally, very quickly, I wanted to talk about KJ Aiello's The Monster in the Mirror, another debut essay collection. In this one, KJ blends together memoir, research, and cultural criticism to look at the ways that we tell stories about mental illness through fantasy and fiction. So in everything from Lord of the Rings to Game of Thrones to Dungeons and Dragons, KJ asks us to think about the books and movies that we love and ask ourselves, who is able to tell their own stories? Who is mad versus sane? Who is good versus evil? And who is weak versus strong? Fantasy as a genre pushes boundaries not just of what is real, but what is good, and KJ argues that it can promote a much deeper understanding of mental illness as well. So this one's for the fantasy readers. You can pick up this thoughtful, engaging collection again at ALA, where we'll have ARCs, or in September. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for coming today and for listening. If you're interested in learning more, you can find us, you can reach out. Here is some contact information for myself and our sales team. Next slide, please. You can also sign up for our library newsletter on our website, or find us on Edelweiss and NetGalley. Next slide. Or if you're interested for more webinars, we've teamed up with Overdrive and Anik Press to present some of the best debuts that we have coming this year. This is going to be in July. So you can register for that through the QR code, or if you're interested in just like getting a link, again, reach out. I'm always happy to say hi, recommend books, make friends. My email is in the slideshow. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Elham. That was transporting. Well, we now have our final presenter today, Robert Wintner. Robert has authored 12 novels, 3 memoirs, 4 story collections, and 5 reef photo books. Robert has crossed 2 continents on motorcycle, sailed 4 of the 7 seas, dove tropical reefs around the world, and rose from ashes to success in a place Forbes magazine called the most difficult business arena in America. Profiled in a dozen Metro daily papers, interviewed on 100 radio shows, he declined Lenin when asked to arrive at mask, fins, and snorkel. Robert is committed to style, story, entertainment, and lasting value. He's executive producer of The Dark Hobby, an award-winning feature film exposing the aquarium trade's devastating impact. Robert Wintner is the nom de plume of Snorkel Bob, Hawaii's reef outfitter, known for quality and hygiene in trying times. He lives on Maui with Anita, Cookie the dog, Yo-Yo, Tootsie, Rocky, Inez, and Coco the cat. Welcome, Robert. You are muted.
How's that?
That's great. Thank you. Take it away.
Aloha, librarians. I'm Robert Wintner. I've authored 16 novels, 5 story collections, and 5 reef books with photos and political narrative. Toucan Whisper, Toucan Sing is rich in action, fun, lust, romance, and intrigue. Toucan came out in a first edition in 2002 from the Permanent Press in Sag Harbor, where Marty Shepard was the publisher and became a close friend. Marty passed a few years ago, and I dedicate this second edition to him. Reviews include this one. The transitions in point of view are deft and impressive, and the characterizations are successful. Wintner endows his hotel workers with telling perceptions. With Toucan Whisper, Toucan Sing, Wintner succeeds in creating a roguish, self-absorbed protagonist who becomes increasingly likable in the company of his peers and the context of his times. That was from Edward Keene of Long Island University in Brooklyn for the Library Journal. Another review I loved Toucan Whisper, Toucan Sing is the story of two brothers, Antonio, a gregarious gigolo, and Baldo, a dysfunctional mute who loves nature. Both work at a resort hotel, as does Lyria, betrothed to Antonio, yet drawn to silent Baldo. In the tangle is a murder on the beach and extrication, Mexican style. Exotic location, beautiful people, sex and murder, another winning combination from Permanent Press. But the writing is what makes this story blossom. It's incredibly sensual and lyrical, lush and languid, like the tropics themselves. Altogether, Toucan Whisper, Toucan Sing is an easy, pleasing read for the mind and senses. That was from Sanford J. Greenberg Associates Scouting Report. Style and content are unique in Toucan Whisper, Toucan Sing. Each character navigates by a personal moral compass with variations on true north. Each seeks fulfillment with regard to needs, wants, and the law. That would be statutory law along with the greater law of nature. Full disclosure, near the turn of the millennia, Y2K, many people feared the moment as if chaos would reign or a milestone in time could mark a change for the better. Many still fear and hope. Back then, my wife and I were coming off a very busy century, stress crazed. We needed a getaway, total distraction. We needed to shut down and disconnect, rest, relaxation, no phones, no TV, nothing. What's that sound? Ixtapa on the west coast of Mexico looked good, and so did its easy proximity to Zihuatanejo, a fun little town only minutes up the road. The flight and arrival weren't too bad, still 2 years shy of 9/11, and we felt good checking in, changing to beach skivvies and heading down to the pool deck where we lay back and breathe deep. Eyelids settled on breezy whispers and, "Ay, Chihuahua!" What the? I sat up to see a lithe, muscular guy with electric hair and stomach ripples squirming like a worm on hot concrete and shouting, "Wake up! Plenty time for sleep when you dead." Pissed off, went to reactionary. I got up and sat back down and reached under the chase lounge for my pad and pen to take notes. "What are you doing?" my wife asked. "Nothing," I said. By nightfall, we'd met a beautiful housemaid and a lanky boy who did not speak. A luscious woman poolside fit well, and the legal pad populated with personalities in pursuit of happiness con salsa picante. By the end of the week, I needed a vacation. Well, that's showbiz. I ask that you order this exotic novel of Mexico for its adventure and characters, their foibles and truths, and for its style, line for line, babbling like a brook or roiling like rapids heading for the falls. I have another story collection coming out next year, Critical Mass, which seems au courant with the times and world we live in. Critical Mass features my dog Cookie and a few stories set on the beach. Thanks for listening. I started writing fiction in 1962, so I've been in development for a while. I seek to entertain, to stimulate, and provoke. You may laugh out loud now and then, and that's a good thing too. I'm Robert Wintner. The novel is Toucan Whisper, Toucan Sing. This is what it looks like. And I have an excerpt. This excerpt begins, as I think excerpts should, on page 1. Crystal teardrops clink in the chandelier near the top of the grand foyer. 18 floors up, they shimmer. They set a tone for prices in the gift shop. A look up may grant insight in advance that they're fair, the prices, considering the elegance and taste at hand. Pinched snug from the rear so the high-quality cotton conforms to the muscular plastic torso, T-shirts of superb design and imagery offer the exotic flair of the place and can continue to do so long after Hotel Huactepec guests go home. These teas cost more than a normal tea, but while you might save a few pesos elsewhere, you would hardly accrue the exotic identity these teas can provide for years to come. Colorful illustrations capture an essence, so the tropical tingle endures, even in winter in a chilblain loft in Minnesota under a sweater. A wayfarer may recall a hot breeze whispering love and anarchy in nature, as you feel it here. A memento is to have and hold, to wear and feel its teeming essence from far away. Others who see it will feel its simmer and sense your experience. Surrounded by such comfort and potential for exotic character, what are a few extra pesos? On the front of each tee is a wild animal, silk-screened in garish pastels, lifelike as the species recently roaming, screeching and praying here. They don't anymore, those wild others, nor is their screech and scratch heard beyond the hill or down the road. The only habitat over the hill is employee housing, hardly marbled and mostly lit by naked bulbs. These modest bungalows are a blessed billet for the likes of Antonio Garza, who rises yet again from flat on his back to sitting up. As if taking a tally of his power to make more money in tips on a single morning than his father made in a week on the road crew, he counts 82. Down and up again, he represses the grunt, 83. Antonio knows the value of sit-ups. They're very close to money in the bank. Beyond intrinsic value, he knows that doing the first thing in the morning is worth plenty. Just look at today. He waited until after eating, before siesta, with the day half done and the day's energy half spent. He will reach 120 before deciding if 125 will do, or if today feels good for 150. He knows the 150 standard must stick once established, so he mustn't press prematurely. He also knows that today is the day the bar will rise. A washboard stomach doesn't last forever, nor can the ripples deepen without strenuous effort. Then again, he is late, a condition common to a man on the rise, but not acceptable to a punctual man. For the sin of tardiness, he will give penance. 85, 89. He remembers like it was only this morning, the day long ago, when Milo, the beach manager, told him to take off his starched white jacket and go. In a moment of startling chagrin, he sensed what had been inevitable, given Milo's envy. Yet close on the heel of anxiety came certain joy as Milo's finger shot seaward. Go to the jet skis! Aye. The jet skis could not be called a promotion by anyone but Antonio, whose prowess drew more guests to the jet skis than anyone had drawn before him. He rendered happier customers than ever before as well, generating more revenue and goodwill. In a simple progression, he went from the jet skis to the towboat that pulls the big banana, and from there to pulling the parasail. Antonio made them laugh, no matter their fantasy or fear, as he does to this day. Fast or slow, no problema. He eases them into spending as if that's why they came, as if spending is to fun and sun what tequila is to margaritas. Thanks again. I'm Robert Wintner. The novel is Two Can Whisper, Two Can Sing. It's a fun one. Aloha.
Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you, Alham and MC, for all wonderful presentations. We hope to see all of you in San Diego at ALA Annual also. More on that in future webinars. Tomorrow, you will all receive an email containing links to today's video recording, the slide presentation, the title list, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinar. There you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming programs like these. Thank you for joining us for today's Indie webinar. A huge thank you to our talented panelists and to our sponsors. This concludes today's webinars. Stay well. We'll see you next time.